Hey everyone, welcome back to Cignals Trading Academy. This is lesson number 18, and today we're discussing delta divergences. This is something that I've been meaning to cover for a while. I feel it's important and just didn't have the opportunity to do so because there were some more pressing lessons that we needed to get out of the way before we got here. And now that the sophomore year of the Trading Academy is wrapping up, I figured let's get this included in the sophomore year so you can better understand delta, how to spot divergences, and ultimately become a more profitable trader using signals. And if you have any feedback or if you found this information useful, just leave something down in the comments for us. Let us know how you use delta. If you find what we're talking about useful, what you think our next topic should be covering in the Signals Trading Academy. And also, if you could, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out tremendously, and we really do appreciate your support. It means the world to us. And if you haven't signed up for your free Signals account yet, Cignals.io, link in the description. Go ahead, sign up for your free account. If you've already got your free account and been tinkering for a while on the fence about upgrading, go ahead. It's $19.99 a month for the basic subscription, which gives you access to almost everything Signals has to offer, or $190 a year if paid in full. So definitely check that out as well, guys. We really do believe this will help you out quite tremendously. All it's really going to take is one or two good trades to cover the subscription cost and ultimately show you that this system does work quite well. So Cignals.io, go ahead and sign up or upgrade if you haven't already, and you can see the difference in price tiers once you go to the upgrade page. So hopping right into all of this, if you notice, we do delta a little bit differently than a lot of the other charting systems that you may be used to, something like a trading view, thinkorswim, whatever, Sierra chart. And the reason why we chose to do it our way is because Bitcoin is a very different market than futures and everything else you're probably accustomed to using order flow with. It trades 24/7. There's no breaks. There's a lot of nuance that goes on in following this market. So our delta is a continuous delta. It's formulated a little differently than cumulative delta or whatever. But at the end of the day, it tells you the same story, but just presented and calculated a little bit differently. So in a vacuum, let's just assume, well, if you don't know what delta is, and this is your first foray into delta, if you will, delta is the difference, or the delta, in buyers at the ask, sellers at the bid. Okay, so aggressive buying versus aggressive selling, the net change in those numbers. So in a vacuum, everything else being equal, if it's just you sitting there and trade, well, you can't trade by yourself, but if it's just you out there and you buy one contract at the ask, right, the delta is +1. So that's how you would get that. You bought at the ask, meaning you hit the ask and lifted it. The delta is now +1 in a vacuum, right? You bought. The delta is now +1. When you flatten that position, meaning that you are no longer in that position anymore, the delta goes back to 0, all else being equal, and that's how you get those numbers calculated. If you hit the bid, and let's say with two contracts in a vacuum, okay, the delta is -2. When you let's say you flatten one of those contracts, the delta is -1. When you flatten both, delta is 0 again. So that's how that works in a vacuum, in theory. In actuality, it's a lot more involved than that due to market participants and whatnot. But that's the gist of it. And how do we get an idea of what the delta is trying to tell us, and where do divergences come into play here? That's what most people are probably wondering. So real simply, let's look at this cluster, right? So we have this cluster. I'm just trying to zoom in so we can see a little bit more detail about these clusters. And let's start right around here. This is a 4-hour Bitcoin USDT chart, or cluster, if you will. And let's look here. Notice how we start right around 20,000, start to break down, negative delta, and falling long short ratio if we look here, and falling VWAP. And if we look here, negative delta, but it starts to get a little bit less heavy. And when you don't see a bar for a particular time period, that means the delta is neutral. The difference between buyers and sellers equates to zero. So that delta is flat. There's nothing to be shown there, so we don't show anything. So when you see these blank spots, that's what that means. Notice how heavily this drawdown, it gets pretty heavy, and you see delta reflect that in the 4-hour delta window. As we get here, delta starts to get a little bit less heavy, even though we went down past these local lows. And now we look over to these two clusters. We start to form a little bit of a bottom here. VWAP starts to basically even out. We start to get a mildly green delta reading. Now look here. We've gone over imbalances a bit, and you start to see this imbalance level towards the bottom of the cluster. And this is a 4-hour, this is a 4-hour cluster, so it's measuring everything over 4 hours, each individual cluster. We're moving down, we get a buy imbalance, VWAP's pretty much starting to turn back up again. And what happens? We have a green delta bar here as price is moving down, and we can't break past these local lows, right? So what does that tell you? When price is moving down and you get essentially a reading in delta that shows you the opposite pressure is being exerted onto the book as price is moving down, you start to get what's called a divergence, because price is moving down but is being absorbed, and what's happening is that it can't break down past the lows. It's trying, it wants to, and this works in reverse too, but we're using this as an example, price coming down and positive delta divergence. So what we're seeing is price coming down, and essentially it's being bought up right around the imbalance level before the local low of about 18.7 is hit. So you get this reading of positive delta. So that gives you your first clue that price is trying to reverse back the other way, that the selling may have dried up. There is aggressive selling happening, but there is also a decent amount of buyers that are stepping into the fray to push the initiative in the other direction. And once you sell and you are now short or whatever, you're going to have to buy to cover that position again. So as we try to get lower, and the price will not go lower, you start to see people basically puke out their shorts. You start to see people, they see this, so they start to pile in long, maybe around the imbalance level. There's a lot of different reasons that, price will start to reverse the other way. But all else being equal, once you're short, you're the fuel for the squeeze higher and essentially the run back in the other direction. So let's look at the next bar. We start to get essentially some short covering because now we're getting big delta, okay? We're starting to move higher. We're getting that big slope change in VWAP, and we get to roughly 21K NPOC, can't crack it. But look at where we started from. Basically, almost it's a good $1,300 move almost. So you got a lot of room to run off of this little divergence reading. And as we start to dip back down off of this bar, we push higher. We tried to take out the 21K NPOC, but the funny part about it is that, we couldn't do it. We start to pull back, but even with the big pullback, people slamming the bids lower, we start to see still moderately positive delta. And as we go into the next cluster, again, positive delta. So it's trying, and it can't even get halfway past this. It basically cleared half of this move up right here, more or less, as it's coming down on positive delta. We keep moving. We get some negative delta here, but again, cannot take out these lows around here. Tried and could not do it. Around 18.7, you get the buy imbalance on some negative delta, and we keep printing positive from there, albeit not exactly a huge amount of delta like we saw here, but still, As price is kind of going sideways, you can see the absorption happening. Just buyers are sucking up all of the seller's pressure, trying to go in the other direction with it. You get another downtrend right here, a little dip lower. Okay, it's trying to, but again, cannot clear out these lows. You get that divergence here again. Okay, and now we start to dip towards this unfinished auction. Very light delta here, same thing. There's no reading here, so neutral delta. We start to essentially form a band of roughly, let's look at it, 19,000, like a $500 window, where buyers are essentially absorbing all of what the sellers are putting on the bid. So that's a good sign, right? And as we continue to move down here, again, same exact situation. We do get a break back to right before 18.7. It tried, again tries. Now again, it can't break these lows, guys. Do you see how it's trying to get down past 18.7 but can't on small negative delta? And then the next bar that prints, it tries to balance itself out, can't do it, prints that delta divergence. VWAP turns up, huge delta now. We clear this UFA out. We get roughly a, from net, what is this, 19, like a $600-700 move higher. Same thing here. Trying to break down, cannot do it on, this is 4 hours too. So a lot of buying occurring as sellers are hammering the bid. Almost nothing here. You see, can't break down, stuck at 19. Now we're starting to print little divergence here on the on this little candle. It didn't go anywhere, but the problem is that this little divergence did not. There's so much pressure around these levels from buyers as sellers are essentially hammering the bid, that this little whatever, like $200-300 window, $150-200 window, doesn't really matter. We start to get that nice accumulation. Look at that, real nice. And shorts are covering now. I mean, we're getting big delta. Buyers are hopping on. VWAP pointing up. Start going. And here we go. Now we start to get decent delta on the sell side. But again, cannot break that low from where this all started. This is how we spoke about imbalances too. Reading imbalances, watching where they occur. Notice how when we do finally get some negative delta and some sell pressure, it's heavy here. Next cluster, we're pretty much at 19.3, 19.2 and change. And again, it's diverging. It can't balance. You have a little NPOC here trying to come down, but ultimately the buyers they're ready. They're stepping up at what they perceive as support. And here we are in real time, starting to move back up again, clearing out our balance target for the period, trying to run to NPOC. These are ways, guys, that you can use divergences in your trading to make everything a little bit easier, because your first clue that something is not wrong, but your first clue that there may be a divergent trade brewing is that when something is supposed to happen and it doesn't, like when we see a negative cluster but positive delta, and then you use the VWAP with that, and you use your long short ratios, your open interest, and all of that with it, and you follow the profile and the depth of market, and you combine all of these things together, you get a really clear picture of what is probably going to happen next, right? So we see here there's been a ton of divergences printing over the past day plus, as prices coming down, that we can't break past these local lows of about 18.7, 18.8. Every time we try, we get near the area, buyers step back in and essentially vote with their money and show you, no, this isn't fair value, this is cheap, I want to buy this because this is extreme value in my opinion. And we get that divergence, or that decoupling of what should happen and what's actually happening. So your first clue is always, this should be happening, meaning like delta is negative, but we're getting, or excuse me, delta, excuse me, Let me rephrase that, guys. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. Price is coming down, but delta is positive. So again, in a vacuum, as price is coming down, delta should be coming down with it. But over the past day plus, there's only been a few occasions where price was coming down towards our floor of about 18.8, 18.7, and the delta didn't diverge from price. So buyers were obviously looking to dip their toes in at that area. Delta should have been coming down. It wasn't. You saw kind of like the VWAP flatten out and start to go higher in most occasions where this happens. You start to see essentially buyers set the support, set the floor at the 19K, 18.8, 18.7 bound. And again, when you're short, now you're going to have to cover to, if you're losing money, you're not going to stay in that position indefinitely. So they're the fuel. These shorts they're not trapped yet, but they realize that they're losing money. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at a certain point. We know based on the order flow where the floor is being set by buyers as prices pretty heavily coming down. They're absorbing it, turning the delta from negative to positive, driving the price higher, forcing shorts to cover, which drives price higher even more. And then ultimately that cycle keeps repeating until initiative is found and we start to move towards our next area of acceptance. So that's really all there is to it. It's not super complicated, guys. Like I said, as you can see here, we got a good example of it, pulling back, positive delta. It's trying to get through that floor, trying to hit this BT from the previous period. Couldn't. Try to hit this BT. Couldn't. Got capped by NPOC. Pulls back. VWAP is sloped down, obviously, from these two clusters over the last 8 hours. In this 12-hour mark, it starts to flatten out. You get those buyers step back in. We get this slope change, big delta, and now we're shooting for NPOC about 20.3K. And our balance target is somewhere in the 19.4K region. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. Just looking for everything and kind of like putting it together. But delta divergences in and of themselves are very powerful things. You can find, like, for me, it makes more sense to look at these things on higher time frames just to get an idea of how strong they are. On a lower time frame they work too, but I like to use for the sake of this example on a higher time frame, just so you can see even in a 4-hour period this occurs. Like there's a major pullback occurring, like a dip from 20.5 down basically to 19.5, $1,000 pullback, but that is being absorbed by buyers once we hit a certain point in the process of pulling back. It seems like 18.8, 18.7 is kind of the area where we're getting a lot of accumulation and we're forcing sellers to either really prove it or cover and basically catapult us higher with price and ultimately take the positions that the bulls are entering into at these lower 19s, higher 18s, higher with it. So that's kind of the point, guys. It's simple stuff. It's not rocket science. I hope this stuff helps you in your trading. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. Let us know what our next topic should be. Go ahead, sign up for Cignals. It's $19.99 a month or $190 a year. One good trade covers it. Another good trade puts you into a decent position going forward over the rest of the year and pretty much proves the point that we've been trying to make over the last year and change of how trading this way and taking what we're saying and applying it to how to use signals A and B, change the way you look at trading, will really, really help you long run, continuously make money, stack up good days, and ultimately give you the confidence you need to maybe break away from what it is you're doing on a full-time basis and maybe focus on trading more. So definitely go ahead, hit that like button, leave us a comment if you could about what we just went over, what you want to see next, subscribe, go to cignals.io, link in the description, sign up for your free account if you haven't already, upgrade that to $19.99 a month, take your trading to the next level, guys, and we will see you next week. Have a great day.